Hi, my name is Truly Scrumptious St. James, and I'm from right here in Cincinnati, Ohio. It depends on what I'm wearing. So if I'm dressed as a boy, I'm a he, a him. If I'm dressed like this, then I'm she, her. I identify as a gay man, a drag queen. I was born and raised on the west side of Cincinnati. They always say born and died on the west side. So we try to stay on the west side when we're from the west side. If I go to Mount Adams, I need a passport and a blood test generally. But no, West Siders. I'm a proud West Sider. I live in Delhi currently. I've traveled a great deal, but I have always lived in Cincinnati. It's been my hometown. I went to school here. I went to college here. I had my career here. I'm a hometown boy, girl. I went to Western Hills High School, West Side. West High, Best High, dear old West High on the hill. Yeah, I do know the fight song. I graduated in 1986, so I'm in my 50s, we'll put it that way. I started out at Mount St. Joseph, and that's where I finished, but I went to UC for my master's degree and postgraduate work. I did some courses at Xavier. I did some courses at Miami University, so I've probably gone to every college in town for one reason or another. But as a 32-year plus retired educator, principal, science teacher, I had an opportunity to go to school a lot. So Cincinnati is a really good school to go, really good place to get to go to school. It's all local, and the diversity in schools is really a good thing. I was a science teacher for about 20 years. At one point, I was the only forensic science teacher in Cincinnati. We used to do blood splatter analysis and fingerprints and all of that stuff, but no, not anymore. Not anymore. I'm retired now. I was a teacher at Schroeder High School for 20 years, and then I became the assistant principal of Carson Elementary School. And then I retired as the principal of Roselawn Condon. And then the last year, I went back. I didn't really think I wanted to retire. Like I wanted to retire, and then I retired. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. So for a year, I was principal of a residential school. Residential because the court ordered them to be there. So we had 100% perfect attendance every single day. But after a year, I realized that I needed to do something else. It was time, and 30 plus years of being in charge of everyone's life and everything involved with their life was enough. So it's time for some playtime. And I'd rather have the time on this end rather than the time on the other end when I'm on the oxygen hose, right? So I want to live a little before you wind up, it's just the way the world goes. 1990. All the same year, and funny, it was also the exact same year I started doing drag. The only thing I've done longer than work with kids and families is drag. I've been drag in 91, 2001, 2011, and 2021. So that's 4 decades that I have been in drag. Now that doesn't mean I've done drag for 40 years because I'm only 35. So, but I have been doing drag a long time. It was a dare. It was the height of the AIDS epidemic. You could go out on a Friday night, and by the next weekend, you had gone to 3 funerals. So we were trying to find something to prevent us from just being melancholy all the time. And there was a bar called the Subway, which is now where the 21C Hotel is. In the basement was a bar called the Subway. And one of the morning bartenders, because it opened at 6 a.m., there was a full crowd in there by 8 o'clock in the morning every day. If you walked in there because it was underground and there were no lights, you'd have thought you were in a bar at 10 or 11 o'clock at night because that was what the atmosphere looked like. So we would sit at the bar and talk about the show that had happened the night before. And these guys were like, we'll never get to see this. We work all night, you need to do a show for us. So that was how the Breakfast Club Follies began. And by 8 o'clock in the morning, we were in high whore drag, as it's called, painting our nails and doing shots of wild turkey so that we could get ready to be on the stage. Now, at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're not as pretty as you think you might want to be. So there was some ugly women in that bar in the morning, but we had a blast. And we also were raising money for charity. Most of this, and to this day, I do what I do to raise money for charities here in Cincinnati. I'm part of the Imperial Sovereign Queen City Court of the Buckeye Empire. This is our 30th year of service to our community. I was lucky enough to be elected Empress 13, and I'm now serving on an international committee that right now we're on the front lines of fighting this hateful bills in all of these state legislatures to prevent drag from continuing. There are 41 bills right now in state legislatures across the nation, and I'm a co-chair with a few other individuals from across the country, and we're trying to build a network and create boots on the ground so that we can continue to not only give out information, but get the information and spread it out so that people know what to do, what we are doing. I mean, on the face of it, it's wholly unconstitutional. This is freedom of expression. You know, if the folks can go to Walmart dressed like that, then I should be able to go out dressed like this. So there it is. So if they want to legislate that I can't look like this, then they need to go to their local Walmart and do the exact same thing. Seemed like it all happened in the same week, I swear. I was very afraid to come out. I did not think my family would be supportive. I did not think my family would allow me to live at home. So I waited until I was finished with college, and so that I could support myself. And I had a job, and it actually came out of an argument with my mother and she are you going to go hang out with your fag friends, is what she said to me. And I went, well, yeah, because I'm the biggest one there, you know. And it was an argument, and it was horrible. And I don't ever recommend having that kind of argument with your parent where it results in something like that. But I didn't really need to come out. If you watch me walk across the room, you'd go, yep, that's a queen. So, I mean, I've just always been the same way. Even in my drag persona, my personality is the same. My voice is the same. My affect is the same. My sense of humor is the same. This is just, I just dress differently. Maybe wear a little more eyeliner than normal, but this is what you get all the time. I'm the same person. And that's the folks who have known me for many years, they'll tell you that. I might be a little hyped, but it's still the same person. 2021, my father had just died. I was the youngest and the only boy. Everyone was gone from the house. Father was gone. So my mother was battling empty nest syndrome and grieving her husband of 30 years. And I was the only one left at home. So I bore the brunt of all of it. I took the place of my father. I took the place of my sisters. And as a result, it was stifling. It was, I was smothered. And she wasn't trying to hurt me. She just wanted to make sure I was going to be okay. But she didn't understand. And that was 34, 35 years ago at this point. It was a totally different world. 35 years ago, if you came out in drag, you could get arrested. And if you were on TV for being in drag, it's because you were being exposed on the news and you fired from your job the next day. Now you can win an Emmy, So there's some growth. But as you also know, in this past year or so, that's when folks are starting to try to limit our freedoms. And they're coming for drag queens first so that then they can get to the trans folks. Because if it's okay to mess with me and I don't have the plumbing that matches this outfit, then it's a whole lot easier to go for those folks who present as they should because they're being their true selves. But it's just a bait and switch. Let's make a whole lot of noise about this so you can't see what I'm doing in the background to harm you even further. So we're savvy. We've been down this road before. We marched on Washington. It's because of the court system, and we call ourselves the gay Shriners because that's how we try to tell people about what we do. We raise charity. They wear funny hats and drive little cars. We wear crowns and gowns and lots of jewelry. So it's the same thing. And proudly here in Cincinnati, we've raised, almost $1.5 million in 30 years. And every dime has stayed local. It's right here local. Caracol, Cincinnati, Stop AIDS, AVOC, AIDS Volunteers of Cincinnati, all of these organizations that have evolved into the organizations they are today. Seed money from local charity fundraisers, $1 at a time for doing drag. And we have created a huge network and a huge programs for scholarships, for healthcare, for housing. Because if you're not going to do it for yourself, no one else would. If it weren't for the lesbians and the nurses, the female nurses in the early part of the 80s, the death rate would have tripled. There were folks who went into the hospital and no one ever saw them. And I'm talking about hospital staff. They were placed in parts of the hospital and no one ever went. No one ever cleaned the linens. No one ever brought them food. No one took care of them. And when I watched Pose, the Netflix series, it just brought back all of that. That was so real. That hit home like nobody's business. Just watching that and reliving that in your own mind to a degree. I cried more than once watching that show because finally we were represented in our history, our story, the way that it unfolded. Might have been dramatized a little bit, but it was real. It was real to those of us who lived it. It was absolutely real. Stonewall was a riot. It was not a parade. It wasn't a tea party. There were drag queens throwing bricks because were tired of being beaten up and harassed by the NYPD. That's how it started. I love and flash forward from the 60s to today, and in New York City, there was a drag brunch, and the Proud Boys showed up, and the drag queens beat the hell out of the Proud Boys. And they were like, we were just here to watch. Well, you got your ass whipped, so stop watching. So we're not going anywhere. The cat's been out of the bag for 500 years as far as men in dresses. So, and we gay men with way too much fashion sense for one gender, as Vita Bohem said in Tu Wong Fu, that's what makes us drag queens, But 30 years ago, the simple fact that I'm sitting here dressed this way was a protest. At one point you had to always have 3 articles of male clothing on, and you could be creative. So you wore a jockstrap and 2 men's bow ties in your hair. It worked. You got away with it. But, and I'm not so sure that's even a law these days, but, they're going to find a way to get us, and we just got to outsmart them, and we have to fight smarter and harder than they do. And the beauty of that is there are way more of us than there are of them. So my mom passed. My mom has been gone probably about 8 or 9 years. Well, we reconciled. We never had a falling out, but I knew that I wasn't exactly what she wanted. But I was her kid, and that kind of trumped everything else. When I told my father I was gay, his first words to me were, "Don't tell your mother." Because he knew she was who she was, and she lived her truth authentically as well. And I can't hate her for being who she was, even though I thought she could have loved me a little more. But she couldn't have loved me any less. So she just had to be her, and I had to be me, and we had to be okay with it. Because you don't get to pick your mom. You don't get to pick your child. You're stuck with one another. Whether you want it or not, you're stuck with one another. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But the beautiful part about being in this community is you can pick your family. You can say, oh yes, no. Yes, yes, no. And, I have friends that I've had for 30 years in this community. The first person I ever met when I went out to a club is still a friend of mine. And being part of the International Court System, at one point we have had over 90 chapters across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And I've been lucky enough to have visited and made friends and still have contacts all over this country. In the powerfulness of that network, and I didn't even know we had a network until one day I was on Facebook, and a friend of mine who had been living in Chicago was in an abusive relationship. And he was planning to move back home to Chicago. But he and his partner, who he was leaving, had a real falling out. And he put him out. And he was on the streets of Chicago in the cold, and his bus didn't leave till the next day. He had no money. So he put out on Facebook, does anybody know anybody who could give me help, let me stay somewhere? I typed 2 sentences on Facebook. Hey, court friends in Chicago, I need a friend who needs some help. Anybody want to help me? Within 15 minutes, he was picked up, taken somewhere for the night, fed dinner, and they dropped him off at his Greyhound the next morning to come home to Cincinnati, and he was safe. So that's the power of a network and of building your own family around this nation because of the work that we do that unites all of us. Our founder, Jose Sarria, the first gay person to ever run for public office in 1961 in California, her tagline has always been, united we stand, divided they pick us off one by one. And she ain't wrong. And that's been our mantra for 50 plus years. So I'm proud to belong to an organization that is that invested in seeing our community be better and seeing our community thrive. It really is a treasure to be larger and part of something bigger than yourself. And that's what you get with the Imperial Court System. I voted for Angela St. James, Empress 1, in 1992, which was the first election in Cincinnati for the Imperial Court of Cincinnati. It's been around since 1965. San Francisco was the founding court, and they began in 1965. But Cincinnati, we're 31 years. But I voted for Empress 1. We went as a group over to Old Spurs, over off of Broadway, to have that election. And I was a young teacher, so it costs a lot of money to look this cheap, and to travel and to be part of this charity because you're giving away money that you earn. So as a young teacher, you poor as hell, you don't have a whole lot anyway, so you give your time. I was in drag 4 nights a week sometimes, doing shows and traveling. But for 15 years, I survived as a showgirl and a teacher and got my own world together so that I could be part of and be an empress and give away money and travel and do it the way that it should be done. And I'm still traveling. I just got back from Seattle. Next week, I'm going to Illinois to host the Illinois Bear Contest. And then who knows what's after that. I'll be in Hamilton, Ontario, I believe, in August for a coronation. We're going to go to Lexington in June for their coronation. We have a lot of things that we do, but it's fun. Well, being single And being young and being gay, I had lots of time to compartmentalize, and I had lots of free time. I was a fairly gifted educator and was always prepared, and that part of my life was easy because I knew what I was doing. And I enjoyed traveling and enjoyed being in drag and enjoyed performing and liked raising money for other people to do better. So it was rough. But luckily, as a teacher, you get weekends off, and that's when everything happens is on the weekends. So the schedule lent itself great to be able to do both. And I've served on the board. I've served in every capacity on the board. And right now I'm serving on the International Imperial Court Council as an heir apparent to our Queen Mother Nicole I, who's a huge activist. She's been an activist for 50 years. Has met Harvey Milk, is friends with the Shepherds, Matthew Shepard's mother and father, is a huge political activist in the state of California, led the fight to have the postage stamps named for Harvey Milk, led the fight to have the naval ship named for Harvey Milk after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was lifted. These are folks who we want to see our history just as prolific as everyone else's. You're going to hear about George Washington in the Revolutionary War, but are you going to hear about Baron von Steuben, who was an openly gay aristocrat from Germany, who came over with his two lovers and fought in the Revolutionary War, was one of the first aristocrats in Europe to support the Revolutionary War, and therefore is part of the reason we were successful. He brought his military knowledge and money, put his money where his mouth is. And if you look at the park directly across the street from the White House, there are only 4 statues there, and one of them is of a gay military aristocrat who helped us beat the British and become a free nation. All throughout history, gay people have been involved. We get erased like everyone else who's marginalized. But that's why we need these kinds of stories, these kinds of projects, because our history is just as important as everyone else's. This is also American history. This is part of it. And I'm proud to be able to have been around as long and known as many people as I've known and been part of the things that I've been part of. It's reflective. People don't do it very often. And as a principal, I used to say teachers don't reflect enough. If you thought about what you did today, you might do it differently tomorrow. That's about a lesson. But the same thing can be about life. If you think about what you did today, how can you make it better tomorrow? That's what all of us need to do. We need to always try to make tomorrow better than today. And if I were a parent, and my dad used to preach this all of the time, it is the job of the first generation to make sure the second generation is a little bit better off. And then their job is to make sure the third generation is a little bit better than they were. So we're always constantly pushing one another to be better than we are. And that's part of this organization as well. We are always looking for the next group that we can lift up to move to do the work, because we're not going to be here forever. But as long as I can wear 4-inch pumps, I'm going to be in this fight. That's the reality, because it's worth my time, it's worth the effort, it's worth the money. It really is. As a teacher, no, because the school union, the teachers union, very strong group, and they would have advocated. When I became a principal, I never felt my job was in jeopardy, but I knew that I was under greater scrutiny. There was no union. I'm management, so I served at the will of the superintendent. I was just very lucky in that, number one, I was really good at what I did. So my work spoke for itself. But the fact that I don't look like this as a boy, you couldn't look at my male photo and my female, they didn't look alike. So it was real easy for me to sort of skate through. But I also was honored to hire 2 trans teachers. Never before had they been in Cincinnati, at least to anybody's knowledge. But these 2 teachers were openly trans, and I hired them, which was something that people just didn't do. You were steered away from them. Why would you create that controversy? And I fought that fight because that's what needs to happen. The parent would say, that's a man in a dress. And I said, no, that's a licensed music teacher. So that's what the state says you get. That's what you've got. Any other discussion we can go to my office and talk about, but this is what it is, and it's not going to change. And I may be retired, but those folks are still employed. So you walk the walk, you talk the talk, you do what you say, you remain true to what you say, you follow up, and that's how things get better. You know, we used to say, as an old school teacher, what doesn't get monitored doesn't get fixed. Well, that's the same thing with society. What we don't monitor and fight about and scream about, the politicians won't change. So that's what we have to do. And that's why this screams so loudly, because I stand out. And they're going to hear what I have to say simply because they want to see what's going to come out of that's mouth. You know, but we have a responsibility, and I believe that, and that's why I'm still here. I don't perform a lot. I don't perform locally in the bars. I'm more on the activist side. You know, for 20 plus years, I was in those bars every weekend. The Birdcage now used to be Shooters. Well, for 20 years, I was on that corner doing my show. Was indoors, and there wasn't a lamppost. But anyway, I was still on that corner for 20 years, raising money for charity. And we also did Showgirl shows. We raised money for ourselves. But that was the fun. That's what we did. That was our party time. So I enjoyed that. I still enjoy it. But luckily, my role I see now is to keep people aware of what they need to do to make sure that these freedoms remain. And that's why I talk as much as I do about the things that we do, and probably why the people who you've heard my name from say my name, because I do know a lot about the history of this city. I haven't been to every Pride in the last 50 years. You probably have to talk to Michael Chanick about that. But I've been around a long time. You know, I knew Peaches Laverne, who in 1945 was Miss Varga, and there was the Riviera Club. My mother, Angela St. James, Empress One, talks about a nightclub that was on stilts, that the music would bump so loud that the building would shake, but they had a blast. And that's rich Cincinnati history. It really is. And how we got from there to Article 3 to Issue 12 and banning all of that, and look where we are again. Ohio doesn't have any anti-drag bills currently in its pipeline in the state legislature, but not yet, because it's going to happen. They're just waiting to see which state has the roadmap that was successful that they can follow, and then those are the steps that the Ohio folks are going to take. And we don't have a Democratic governor who's going to veto it. And even if we did, there's a supermajority of GOP in Columbus. So we're just going to have to raise money to fight the courts. Unfortunately, politicians have public money to use to marginalize people. We have to privately raise monies to fight those causes because we don't have the public dollar. And it's real sad that they're allowed to use public money to marginalize the community that they're supposed to be serving. We got dressed at home because you didn't, or we got dressed at the bars because if you got dressed at home and left, then you were going to have something said to you. You could, I had a rock thrown at my car while I was driving after a show. The climate is not a lot different. The difference is that the people who hated on us, they're old. They're dying out. And the folks that are coming behind them who are replacing them are way more progressive and way more accepting and actually like what they see. They don't consider this as an abomination. This is just fun, If it weren't for bridesmaids, drag queens probably would have gone out of business a long time ago. RuPaul made drag mainstream, and that's done a lot of good, but it's also done a lot of bad in that local performers don't get the credo they used to have. 20 years ago, we local performers were the headliners. Now it's got to be somebody who's come from RuPaul. And that's fine. That's with the times. And they're amazing. They're amazing. All drag is valid. I'm considered what you call old school because I look like a woman. Well, sort of, kind of. That's the goal anyway. Whether or not I make it is beside the point. But that's the goal. And if you look at some of the folks like Trixie Mattel, who the makeup's very outrageous, it's amazing. I love it all. That's not me. But it's all valid. If you leathers drag, RuPaul said it best. We're born naked. Everything else is drag. When you put your blue jeans and your cowboy boots on, that's drag. So it is who you are, and it's about putting forth the image you want people to see. You just got to be okay with the feedback you get from what you put out into the world. And luckily, I've been very fortunate that what I put out in the world, I usually get smiles or I get compliments. But if I didn't, I probably wouldn't come out this way. And that's a way to gauge whether or not your drag is okay, I suppose. But it's different. It's the same, but it's different. Things are growing, things are changing, but as much as things grow and change, they stay the same. Cincinnati is a very conservative city, always has been. When we started, our first show was on the Oktoberfest weekend. And at 1 o'clock after our show, we would descend in high whore drag on Oktoberfest. So you got all these 7-foot drag queens eating, German egg rolls and drinking. It was hilarious. But we got some stares, but no death threats or anything insane. And we always get stared at, but that's the point, Mae West said it best, and people are too young, they don't know who Mae West was. But Mae West said it best. She said, it is better to be looked over than to be overlooked. And I'm here to tell you it's true. I would much rather be looked over than overlooked. There was even, rumors about Mae West that she was actually a man, that she was actually a drag queen. Well,
I could love Mae West more as if she wasn't.
Hello, it would make her even better as far as I'm concerned. But we've been here, the whole shtick. We want to look like old Hollywood. It's just a way to put forth an image that you think is endearing or it's something you want to put out into the world. I enjoy the reactions that I get from everywhere. Even the negative ones. I laugh to myself. But I know what they're thinking, oh my God. And then when I say, well, yeah, I was a school teacher, then their jaws really drop. Then you can really tell who the GOP is, You weren't reported? No, I wasn't reported. So Truly Scrumptious came from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. everyone was naming one another, and they were giving people horrible names like Gingivitis and Patty Melt and Slatina Never to Roll Over, if you were a tennis player. And I'm like, I don't like none of those. So I'm like, I'm done with you all. We're going home. So that night I went home and I was watching TV, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang just happened to come on the television. And when they started singing Truly Scrumptious, you're oh so truly, I'm like, that's my name. And so I went back to the bar the next day and went, all right, gang, here's my name. And that's how it stuck. The St. James part comes from the court. Angela St. James is Empress One, and she's still around. She's still kicking, and hard, I might add. Yeah, she's here. She lives in Cincinnati, and hopefully we'll get to see her in November at her 30th anniversary. So we're hoping. I'm plotting and planning, but we're hoping. But she took a liking to me. I think the last ball she actually went to was Reign 13. And that was the year I stepped down. And she just really took a liking to me. We hit it off. We have a very similar aesthetic. She's a blonde. She's a showgirl. And we just really hit it off. And I used to spend a lot of time with her. I used to go over to her house on Tuesday nights, and we'd watch NCIS and eat pizza and just have a good time. Now, Angie's a little older than me. She's about 30 years older than me. And I'm not telling you how old she is, because she'll shoot me. But we just became really, really good friends. And then we became family. And then I said, I want to be a St. James. I'm an Empress. As a sign of respect in this organization, you get somebody else's last name because they think you're the cat's pajamas, or you've done something spectacular, or they just want to be associated with you. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, because you can be whatever age, you can be older than them or younger than them and still be an aunt or an uncle. Because when I was born, I was already an uncle. I have sisters that older, who were older than me. But if you're somebody's mama, you got to be older than them. So I don't have any children per se. I have one, Dana Scrumptious, and she lives here in town. But she does not get any older either. But if you're someone's aunt, you can be whatever age. So I have a bunch of nieces and nephews around this country. They call me Auntie, but no children. But I got Angela St. James's last name because I was very respectful and very reminded that she was one of the founders, and she did this first here in this city, and it means a lot to me, and she means a lot to me. So it was a great honor to get the St. James, and there's a lot of people who've asked for it, and she does not give it out. It is not something that she gives out lightly, and I'm not allowed to give it out. So if they ask me, I want to be a St. James, and go, you got to call the lady. I'm just here. But she's a very special person, and to think 30 years ago, the little bitty seed that they planted has now grown into this huge, huge organization is just a real treat, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of. It's been a huge, huge part of my life, and I don't know that my life would be filled or fulfilled without having that opportunity. It's been really great. 20 years ago, I was 2003, 2004, because our reign goes from October to October, or at least in those days, it went from September to September. So you reigned over a 2-year period. It was still 12 months. And you're basically you're elected by people who vote, and I believe that we had 120 folks in the court as members, and they vote for you, and then you're basically the fundraising chair. And because this is all based on royalty and camp society, we call ourselves empresses and emperors. And we wear crowns and lots of jewelry and evening gowns, and it's all pomp and circumstance. It's all very ceremonial. It's kind of fun. I'm an Anglophile. I follow everything related to the British royal family. I'm not the only American that does that, I'm sure. But that's gives us a little bit of time to play in those roles, and we have a good time.
Elected.
Well, I was elected once in reign 13, and we were on 31. So about 18 years ago, it's really been 20 because with COVID, we extended a reign, and then everybody who is a monarch who helped fundraise during COVID was given the number 29 as an honorarium. So I'm Empress 13 and 29 because we did some fundraising. But again, that's what this is about. It's about raising money for those who need it and who may not be able to make it. Well, when I came out, there were way more places to go than there are now. The Golden Lions, which is I think it's on Ludlow. Used to be next door to Uno's, but it was the oldest gay bar in the city. It had been there forever, and I don't know if this is readily known, but most of the gay bars were owned by the mafia at the beginning, at least in New York City and even here locally, the mobs sort of had a hand in the gay bars because you could be arrested and be put in jail for being gay. That's why most gay men, before there were gay bars, they met in hotels. They met in the lobbies of the hotels because that's the place you went to meet. Where else would you know? You could be from out of town. Who knew? But that's where you met. And these were safe places. And so the Golden Lions was the oldest. Simon Says, which is downtown, was another one that I probably spent 20 years playing around in there with my friends. The Golden Lions, Jacobs, Jacobers, Northside used to have a plethora of gay bars and lesbian bars. The Copa used to be up in Clifton. I was the second runner-up to Miss Copa at one point. Earthquake beat me, as a matter of fact. The Earthquake billed herself as the largest indoor drag queen. And now the joke was always, well, girl, how big is the largest outdoor drag queen, right? You need a tent, what? But she could sing. She really had a voice. But yeah, the Copa was up there. Shirley's Tight End was a bar that used to be up there. The city had a lot of places to go. But as gay people became more mainstream, people felt more comfortable going into any location to be who they were, and they were accepted until an orange orangutan got elected to the White House, and now it's okay to hate openly again. I wish they'd just crawl back in their holes and be quiet, because they're the same people they were before he got elected. Now it's just okay to hate because he made it fashionable. So we just got to be more vocal. This means we got to be more vocal and make our message louder than the hate. We've done that before. We'll do it again. They're not going to keep me out. They're not going to stop us from doing what we've been doing. I'm raising money to put people through school and to help people afflicted with HIV and AIDS and homelessness. And you want to say this is deviant behavior and should be eliminated because somebody's child might be able to see me? Oh, please, Mary. Go to Hooters. Go to any high school Friday night football game and watch the halftime show. No drag queen I know thrusts their pelvis like a high school cheerleader. But that is okay. I put a meme on Facebook the other day, and it's these two kids under a table with an active shooter in the background. And the bubble above his head says, "Aren't you glad he's not a drag queen?" Like that's what we're going to worry about? Come on, gang. It's ridiculous. But we ain't going nowhere. We're just not. And they can legislate all they want. We're going to test you. We're going to make sure that, I'm old. I marched in Columbus. I marched in Cincinnati. And we were telling these young activists a few weeks ago when there was a huge beating, because they're scared. And when you are scared and have no answers, what comes out of you is anger. So there were a lot of angry young people at these meetings. And they're saying to us old folks, you need to make your voices louder. Well, that's a little insulting. How can we be louder? Maybe you should tone down your rhetoric a little bit. And they didn't like that either. So the solution is we have to be deliberate and we have to be unified in what we do. And we can't just do things to do things. We have to do them with purpose. And the organization that I'm working with and the committee that I'm chair of, we're getting a press package that we're sending out to all the court systems in the nation. Those 18 states that have specific laws targeting freedom of expression. We are really zeroing in on the language in those bills, and we are sending money to those local organizations and local people to help fight those causes on the ground. It's going to take money to defeat this. And fortunately, we're real good at raising money. Yeah, a lot of experience. Dollar at a time, sometimes a sweaty dollar at a time, but it spends. In the early days, our gay bars were our community centers. Our gay bars were our churches. They were the place. That's where you met your family. That's where you knew it was safe to be you. Because the minute you stepped out of that dark room into the daylight, you turned back into the conformist. Oh, I have to walk a certain way. I can't say, hey girl, I have to conform. And when you were in those safe spaces, you didn't have to conform. You could be who you were and who you are or who you wanted to be. It was that's what that space was for. And luckily, the kids today don't feel like they have to have a space to be who they are, but they do. At this point in time, the data is clear. They don't want you in those places anymore. They don't want you in front of their children reading Tom Sawyer. They don't want you there. So, do you go somewhere you're not wanted and accept what there is, or do you fight so that you know that you're going to be okay wherever you go? I think we need both. I think we need our safe spaces, and I think we should be absolutely safe to go anywhere else we wish to go. But those aren't battles that people are wanting to fight right now. Right now, it's all about, we want you gone, and now we're going to legislate against you, and what are you going to do about it? Well, we're going to show you what we're going to do about it. Oh, when all of the issue, Article 3, Article 12, back in the 90s, when they passed that hateful legislation to basically eliminate people from being gay in Cincinnati, or something like they were pandering to us or something. Balzac, that's all I got to say. Foolishness. And luckily, it took the loss of millions of dollars in revenue, in tourism, in conventions, in the hotels, and all around downtown for those things to finally change. You know, I think even the Chamber of Commerce had great things to say about what has happened as a result of those things gone away. Cincinnati is a destination place for many conventions. Many businesses all over the world want to come here, and part of it is because we repealed those hateful legislation that was right here in our hometown. All downtown. You know, as I said earlier, the first gay pride parade was a riot, and we've been known to be on the street and let people know how we feel. We've been known to, just like Black Lives Matter, we camped outside of City Hall and walked all over this city when we felt we were marginalized. And we walked with those Black Lives Matter folks over the pandemic, because we know if we do nothing when they come for you and they come from us, there's not going to be anybody, then we're just done. We've got to be united. Marginalized peoples must unite because we outnumber them. and our votes outnumber theirs. And if we stick together, there's nothing we can't do. There's nothing we can't do. United, we are stronger. We are absolutely stronger. The majority of my Pride years were spent on a float. The court always had a presence in the parade. Prior to being an empress, I was a participant. I would go to Pride, but the year I was empress, we have every year they do the show at Kings Island. Well, the Oktoberfest is where it was always held, but we, as the court, were the primetime event that night, and we had a show to put on, and it was full of kids, and I was the classroom teacher. So I look around the room and I see some of my students, former students, not current students, because I was teaching little people at the time, and these were grown folks. And I say to one of my friends who's at the show with me, you have to talk on the microphone tonight. Because if they hear my voice, they'll know who I am. And although I'm not hiding, I'm not here to advertise either. I don't want to lose my job. Because at the time, and I think the law still reads the same way, if your personal life outshines your professional life, then the school system can have something to say about your license. If who you are as an individual trumps who you are as a teacher, then we can't have that competition and you won't be so effective in the classroom, so therefore we can fire you. So I'm like, I don't look like him, but I sound just like him. So I gave the microphone, and I didn't speak all night long. So about 10 minutes before our end of time, they're like, Truly, we have 6 more raffle tickets that need to be given out. So I just grabbed the microphone and said, here are the numbers. And I just read numbers, 91487291. Boom, boom, boom. And we gave away all the raffle items. And this little girl comes up to me. She's about 19, and she says, you were my science teacher. And I said, yep, I certainly was. And she says, I didn't know. And I said, and you still don't know. And I didn't know you were here either. So let's both go back home. Now, that was 20 years ago. She's never forgotten that. And I still see her out from time to time. And she always runs up and gives me the biggest hug. Because she says, you didn't tell and neither will I. Because she was there with her girlfriend. And I'm like, does your mother know you're here? No. So she goes, does your mother know you're here? And I went, no. So it was hilarious. But we hid. Now today it's on Facebook that I was coming here in an undisclosed location to be interviewed. I mean, never would I have advertised I was going anywhere in drag all those years ago. You just never knew. You just never knew what was going to happen to you. I've just passed. Been very lucky because I look like a woman. Well, I'm older now, but when I had really good skin and no wrinkles, I passed. And that meant a lot. You know, they thought I was a real woman. But I used to get, is that your real hair? And I went, yep, I paid for it. It's really mine. The first year I was on the float was 2003. But the first Pride I went to was probably 87 or 88. Was fresh out of high school, sophomore in college. And sophomores in college think they know everything. They just think they know everything. So because I knew everything, I was going to put myself out there. And that was the first time I ever went to a gay bar, was in my sophomore year. And it was the first time I ever went to a Pride. And it was very small. That's when we started at Burnett Woods and went down to the park in Northside, and they had a little festival there. It wasn't very big. There may have been 10 floats, if there were floats. You know, I think we were just walking and marching. Lots of hate. Not a lot of people lining the streets other than haters. It's a different world. But again, 30 years ago, those people are in their 80s now. They're not We ain't marching. They're lucky if they can walk. But hate is dying. And that is a beautiful thing. But they're also teaching their progeny to also be haters. So you've got that to look forward to. And it seems like the new hate seems emboldened, seems not very weary of being in the shadows. It wants to be seen. It wants people to know about it. And when I grew up, if you were that kind of person, like none of my family were KKK members. We knew they existed, but they kept their sheets in the closet. They didn't wear them out to breakfast every morning. And I think the way that people wear their idiosyncrasies, their petty insecurities, they wear them like they're badges of honor and think it's okay then to treat other people poorly because of their own issues. They was just raised wrong. That's what that's about. No home training, And I think that's a really awful thing, because hate is so easy to eliminate. Education eliminates hatred. Ignorance propagates hatred. It's just really crazy. And seeing it firsthand, and because, I'm not a butch man at all, but I'm a big man, and I weighed 248 when I stepped down as Empress. I was a big man. And you looked at me, when you looked at me, you didn't, I didn't think I looked gay, if there is such a thing. There's this movie on Netflix called Do I Sound Gay, or it's Amazon, Do I Sound Gay? I can't wait to watch it just to see what it's about. But I never had difficulty, no one called me names as an adult man walking around the city. I didn't stand out in a way that made you, at least I didn't think so. And the response I got from the people around me, they didn't think so. So I really only got attention if I was in a setting where there were other gay people, or I was in drag. Otherwise, I was left alone. I was also a pretty big man, so you didn't really say nothing to me because, I might be a woman, a drag queen, but I'll beat your ass if I have to. Don't get it twisted. I'll take this hair off and beat your ass with it. That's what I used to tell them all the time. But they don't mess with us because they don't never know what you're going to get. And you never know what's in my purse either. So we have to worry about these things. And nowadays, I used to only have to worry about, is my cell phone going to fit in my bag? Now I have to worry about, could I get a handgun in there? It's ridiculous. You got to wear a Kevlar bra is what it's going to wind up being. So I've never felt unsafe though. I've been scared a couple of times because I didn't know what was going to happen, but I've never felt unsafe anywhere. Even now, I don't feel unsafe. I get the giggles when they see me walk by and they're like, yes, the Mona Lisa, the eyes follow with you, right? But I've never felt unsafe. And you can't get dressed like this if you don't want somebody to look at you. That's part of it. So I've had a great time being truly scrumptious. All I ever wanted to be was a local name. I didn't want to be the best drag queen on the planet. I didn't want to be the top rated performer. I just wanted someone to be able to say, hey, do you know Truly Scrumptious? And they go, well, yeah, I know her. And I think I've accomplished that at least a little bit in this city. I get respect. There's a lot of the younger performers. They are very respectful, and they know that they stand on the shoulders of a lot of us. I didn't start this. Stephanie O'Neill and Bobby Holiday and Hurricane Summers and Misty Damdawn and Carlene Lapira, all of these were giants. Scirocco, these were giants in this city when I came out. And I was just in awe to watch them. I would go sit in the dressing room while they got ready. And I'd buy them drinks, and we'd sit And I was just totally enamored with the entire transformation. Carlene Lupira was a huge black man. Used to play the piano, used to play the organ at a local church over in Covington. So on Friday and Saturday night, he'd drink 151 rum and be the biggest drag queen on the planet. And then on Sunday morning, play the organ for the Lord. Now that's a story. But Carlene was this big and painted in a mirror no bigger than the size of her palm. So she'd do one eye and then one eye, but it always looked fine. But I never understood how such a large frame she painted in a I swear to God, it was no bigger than 10 centimeters across, no bigger than the palm of your hand. Used to crack me up. But I still do a lot of Carlene's music to this day. And I do some of Peach's music because nobody's around to remember those things. Peaches sang live and made up funny songs. Nuts, Red Hot Nuts is one of them. Just crazy song, but they're funny. It's not Nicki Minaj and Wet Ass Pussy. If I ever went out on stage and tried to do any music that resembled any of that, they'd call the wagon and have me hauled off because Truly done lost her mind, right? That's just not my aesthetic. It just isn't. But I don't discriminate or hate on anyone who does that music because all drag is valid, and that's the music of today. And I did the music of my day or the day before. I'm an old girl, so I did a lot of 60s and 70s music, 80s, a lot of 80s, a lot of Whitney Houston, Gladys Knight, Patti LaBelle, Motown especially was one of my favorites. But the music has really changed drag. We wanted to be torch song singers and smoke-lit rooms and, all of that. And now it's this high energy dance music with stripper clothes on. And I love it. I could never do it, but I love it. So I'm happy to sit on a chair and talk on a microphone and support the young people and talk about the causes that they know nothing about, but need to know. I get invited all the time to talk about something. Truly, come up here and talk, because I've lived this and I've been part of and invested in this community for over 30 years. So I'm very proud of everything that this city has done. We've got a huge network of drag performers in this city, unlike any other time that I can really think about. When I started, I could probably count on two hands, maybe, all of the people who were in charge of bars and running shows and participating. And now you could fill a directory with the number of performers. By the time you talk about Dayton and you talk about Old Street and then you talk about downtown, the girls are working it and they're really popular. Local drag in this city is really, really good. I used to compare us to Lexington all the time. Lexington, the home of Chelsea Pearl, the goddess of drag, the one, when we pray to the gods for drag, she's the one we pray to, bless her heart. But Chelsea epitomized what real drag was all about. And so I spent a lot of time in Lexington. I was a half empress in Lexington a few times. And they're in up to reign 41, and we're on reign 31, so they're a little older than we are. But if you wanted to see a good drag show, you went to Lexington. They had the hair, they had the makeup, they had it all. And Cincinnati now, we're there. We're along the side of them. And Lexington still has amazing drag. Drag bars, the Connection was there, the bar complex. The Connection was the place to go. That was the place to go, because you saw anybody who was anybody came to Connection to do their stuff nationwide. So I saw the Kinsey Six back in the 90s. They're a LGBT drag queen choir, and they do plays on crazy songs. Like instead of "I will follow him," they do "I will swallow him." So it's hilarious and it's high camp, and they're still around. But I remember getting one of their CDs from the 90s, thinking, "Oh, this is some crazy music," and actually did some of that crazy music. But that part of it, the performing part of it, the shock value that you can provide, or just the entertainment aspect of it is always been really fun for me. I'm a ham. I like being in front of people, and I like to interact, and that makes me a pretty good show hostess sometimes. But it's what I do. I always say I only know how to do this one way, and when I can't do it that way, I won't do it anymore. But I'm a lifelong activist, and I have a lifetime title. An Empress title is a lifetime title, and I happen to believe lifetime title means lifetime commitment, and I believe that wholeheartedly, because as long as someone is still in the position to catch HIV or to die of AIDS, or is marginalized, or has trouble with health care, or is experiencing homelessness, there's something that we need to do as a nation, as a local community, to make that stuff better. And there by the grace of God go I. When you see these people standing on the street with their signs, a couple poor decisions in life, and that could be you. So you may not want to give them $1, but give them a thought. Donate to something that will help them if you don't want to give it directly to them. But do something. It's your responsibility. It's all of our responsibility. We are our brother's keeper. It is our responsibility. And I believe that. I live that. It's important. I really think it's because we've worked at it. One of the things that our organization was charged with around Reign 21, which is about 10 years ago, is we were charged with growing our membership, but specifically growing our female and straight membership. When we first started, it was a gay club, and the first sets of monarchs were very specific that they did not want this to be open to the straight community at all. And if you know anything about lesbians and gays, we didn't always get along. Well, and today we don't always get along. But, we have to, because we're in this together. Because if they get one of us, they're going to get all of us. So we actively, in this city as a court, actively recruited female members, actively recruited lesbian members, actively recruited people of color, actively recruited people of different ages, so that we could always have someone in the wing waiting to go. Although we've also been accused of eating our young, because if you've been doing it a certain way and somebody comes along and doesn't do it the way you think, you're going to have something to say. Doesn't mean that what they're doing isn't valid. It just means you were stuck in what you were doing. And it took me a long time to understand that every reign is different, because every monarch is different. And I was one of those back in the day that was a naysayer because, we didn't do it that way. But we grow, we learn, we know better, we do better. And that's where we are. So it was different. But the fact that there are so many now is because we have actively looked for those folks, to the extent that we have 2 membership chairs on our board of directors. One is specifically about recruitment, and one sort of handles all complaints from members. So we take our membership very seriously, and we are very humbled sometimes because of the overwhelming support we get from our membership. And when they want us to know something, they tell us. It's a double-edged sword. in being as transparent as we are, because sometimes you don't want nobody to know nothing. But when the law says you must tell everybody, then you have no choice. It's just there. They're probably around somewhere. I know probably. I bet if I put a plea out on Facebook, because I know Carlene Lapierre, you can look. There's a YouTube video of her doing a show at the pipeline. There's a lot of videos out there on YouTube. Michael Zachary and these girls who the pipeline was another huge bar. The pipeline was another huge bar that supported the court. The pipeline on one end of the road and shooters at the other. And that's where the drag races started. You ran from pipeline to shooters. It was just crazy. But there are pictures out there. There are YouTube videos out there. If you look in the Inquirer, Betty Rambo was a drag queen who was very politically active. I think she knocked down the KKK cross on Fountain Square years ago when it was there. I mean, she was all over the news. So, we've been around and we've been activists. And I think I was probably 17 or 18 when Betty Rambo did her thing. But we've been here. I don't think we're ever going to go anywhere. Like I said, the cat's out of the bag. It's kind of hard to put 50 years of pantyhose back in the box, right? But we're far more, what's the word? We're far more accepted now than we were, despite the radicals making a point to try to exterminate and eliminate us. Bridesmaids and their parties practically breathed life back into drag in many cities. There were several clubs in Chicago. I go to Chicago a lot. There are several clubs in Chicago that specifically had a bachelorette party night, and they would sell a whole package, and you would get a drag queen all your own for the whole night, and there were strippers and all kind of. They made a real living specifically marketing to those folks. So, we've got, the women love us. Straight women love a drag queen. They would stop me in the middle of when we were in New York City, just walking to the ball. I probably had 50 people stop can I take a picture with you? Can I take a picture with you? Yes, yes, yes. Because it's something, it's like a showgirl. When you go to Vegas and you see those girls standing in those circles, you get $20 to take a picture with one of them. I took my picture with one of them and I said, I'm a drag queen. You'd have to pay $20 to take your picture with me. And so I got my picture for free. But I'm like, I could come out here and make a killing. Of course, I don't know if I could stand in a circle at 80 degrees all damn day. But that's what it was about. It's like going to Venice Beach and seeing all the tattoos and the piercings and just all of the freaks, if you will. It was a freak show, and this is a freak show to a degree. To some people, this is a freak show. To me, this is just hilarious. And if you think I'm a freak, it even cracks me up even more because you don't know me. And tomorrow, when I'm sitting next to you in a ball cap and black rimmed glasses, and I look like John Malkovich, you're not going to know who I am until you hear me speak, and you're going to go, where do I know that voice from? And when I show you that big blonde wig that you're going to go, oh my God, that's you. And to this day, the transformation blows people's minds. It really, really does. I'm a bald white man underneath all of this. Well, I shaved my head, but the transformation is totally. I think so. But for me, that was part of it because I got to be somebody else, but that was still me. But I got to be that person for as long as I wanted to. And it was usually until I had to go to the bathroom so bad that I just go home. Because trying to get all this off in a timely manner to go to the bathroom. It's about 30 minutes of planning. See, how long is it going to take me to walk there? But it's about planning. And if I make it through and don't lose a nail, then I've actually accomplished something. But it works. I was 21 when I first went for my first gay bar. I was 21 years old, and it was on the down. The drugs were there. AZT was there, which was killing them just as much as it was, treating them. The government had just started saying the word AIDS. I think Anthony Fauci had just come on board as sort of like the expert or the person doing the research. And people were just absolutely scared and petrified. As a result, I probably was not intimate with anyone for maybe the first 5 years I came out. You're scared, absolutely scared. Even if you used a condom or protection, we didn't know. So the fear really stunted a lot of growing, a lot of personal growth. And I don't think that's just for me. I think that's anybody who was young at that time. And there was an urgency then that does not exist now. You talk to 19, 20-year-olds now about fighting for HIV. What are we fighting it for? You can take a pill. They think it's diabetes. But my point is, you shouldn't have to take a pill. We have the smarts, the science, the technology to do all of this. And in my personal opinion, there is a cure. We're just fighting with the pharmaceutical company because there's more money in treatment, just like cancer, and I am a survivor. There's more money in treatment than there is in a cure. Cure you take once, you pay one and done. A treatment you pay for the rest of your life. And some of those HIV meds without insurance are $3,500 for a 30-day supply. And even with insurance, it's $500 a month. No one can afford that. So it's ridiculous. Luckily, because of grassroots fundraisers and pressuring politicians and fighting the way we fought for the last 30 years, you can now get a coupon with your prescription, and it costs you nothing. There's a manufacturer's coupon. Or you can work with Caracol, and they can get your meds for you. There's literally no excuse on the planet not to treat HIV because it is treatable. It's not, and it is curable, yet. We're going to do that. Again, it's up to the people in charge, but it's possible. But until there's an urgency again, we're not going to see as quickly moving legislation or quickly moving ground roots, boots on the ground, in your face kind of politicking, if you will, until there's a sense of urgency. What gets monitored gets fixed. And our young LGBTQIA plus community have no sense of urgency. They're too busy living the lives that they think is just the way it is. They don't realize what had to happen in order for them to be that free, or to feel that free, because they're not. But that's the feeling they have because of all they've seen happen since they grew up and all the freedoms we've been given. But look how easily those freedoms can be taken away. And they don't see that part. It's part of the everybody gets a trophy generation. They don't know how to fight. Or they want someone else to fight. And they don't know how. They're scared. So we have to work together. Those of us who've been there are going to teach those of us who are those that are there now. And we're going to work this out because we've got no other choice. They're not going to legislate us out of business. They're not going to legislate us out of existence. And we're just going to do what we have to do, like we always have. Letting them see the path we took, helping them on that path, but then being the safety net for them if they fall. And Penny Tracian said this better than I a few weeks ago when we were talking about this. She said something along the lines of, we were on the front grounds. We're over 50. We're not going to be on the streets getting shot with bean bags and protesting and holding signs, but we're going to be back here raising the money to get you out of jail, because that's what we can do. You're the young ones with all of the energy and all of the and most of the opportunity to lose something you currently have. We know what it's like. So you're going to have to earn your stripes, but we'll be here to catch you when you fall, to make sure you're able to fight again. That's what our role is. And the International Court System has already raised well over $10,000 to donate to local places who are having those people on the ground, those boots on the ground, fighting that legislation. And I'm lucky enough to be one of the people who can direct that money and recommend that it be sent to a certain spot. So right now we're working with the ACLU. We're working with local activists and court members in those 18 states that are affected. And we're trying to build a network of local people who we can feed information to, and they can provide information to us so that we know what's happening and can be at the forefront of all of those protests and fights and events that are going to be taking place to help this happen and to help beat all of this hate. You know, hate couched in protest is still hate. Hate couched in family values is still hate. And this whole gun legislation, and one side saying get rid of the guns and the other side saying, oh, it's a mental health issue. Oh, come on, Mary. Just come on. What can you control? Can you control everyone's mental health? Hell no. But can you control who has guns? Absolutely. We've done it before. So for one group to cop out and give up the power so that it's just becoming a talking point and they can vote how they want, it's not even genuine, you know. And the more often we can call out that kind of behavior for what it really is, we're going to win. We're going to win. I just wish that they loved their kids more than they loved guns. Yeah, that's my biggest wish. If women were running this country, it would already be solved. If two mothers were the president and vice president, if mothers were in Congress, this stuff would have been fixed long ago. Because hey mom, you and my son have a problem. Guess what? I've never seen two mothers not be able to solve an issue when it came to making sure their children were going to be protected and right at the end of it. So when we start electing mothers, things will change. We've become more mainstream. We're not the awful little secret, you know. We're not the relative that you don't talk about it anymore, or you talk about in hushed tones. We are still, but to a larger extent, it's fashionable to have a gay relative. Well, hell, in the 90s and even the early 2000s, everybody had a friend who was a lesbian. Thank God for Ellen, right? I mean, when she came out, it was having a friend who was a lesbian was vogue. Everybody had one. If Goop had been around then, you could have probably bought one, for crying out loud. But slowly, with people realizing and having this sense of living your authentic life. That's relatively new in the zeitgeist of our community. Living your best life, living your authentic self, that's relatively new. And the fact that the younger folks have taken that mantra and run with it, that's changed. There's way more pride. That's why pride's bigger, because we have pride now. You know, I used to tell folks I'm Jewish. We just have shame and guilt. We don't have anything else. Jokingly, but I mean, to a certain degree, pride was shameful for some of us. You know, you didn't want anybody to see you, and God forbid you were in the paper or on the news after the parade. I wore glasses and a big old hat, so they didn't know who I was, because I did not know what was going to happen. I'd probably have one hell of a lawsuit these days, but you didn't want to not have a job. You loved your job, so you hid. We don't have to hide anymore. And that's the part that they're going to have the most difficulty with, is because we're out, we're here, we're not going back in the closet. I got way too many clothes people need to see. My designer is Patrick Howell. He's an Emmy award-winning designer. If you've ever seen the TV show We Are Here on HBO, Eureka O'Hara, Bob the Drag Queen, and Shangela, well, he was one of the designers for that show, and he won an Emmy. So, I mean, and he's been making my clothes exclusively for me for probably 25 years or so. So I'm very lucky that I can work with Patrick, but that's part of my claim to fame, is that I look good. I have great clothes. And I always used to say, they don't tip me, they tip my clothes. But doesn't matter, that dollar's still going to help somebody else. But in however we can get it, we're going to get it. But I've just been very lucky with that. And he's a wonderful guy. He lives in Lexington. Lexington and Cincinnati are pretty close as far as drag. The girls in Lexington work up here. The girls up here work in the bars in Lexington. It's pretty much of a mutual beneficial society. And that keeps it going too. So the fact that you're building those relationships with other people in other cities so that you can make sure that there's a spot for you. It's just like in the business world. You're building those relationships just like you do in drag. It's the same thing. But the size, just the sheer size of pride has blown my mind over the past few years. When we initially moved back downtown, when we used to be in Clifton, and the parade was, first of all, as long as it was. And I think the last year I did it, there was something like 50 floats. That's just unheard of. And to see that it's so family oriented and that there's so much love there, that is what has grown and what is really noticeable, more so than ever before. It's just become a festival and a pride. It's pride in the genuinest sense of that word, pride. It was a riot when we started. So to go from, throwing bricks to busting balloons because you're having a good time, that's, a 180-degree turn. But if we have to go back the other way, nobody does a quick change like we do. I can have a totally different dress on in about 3 minutes if you give me enough time or enough notice. But so we can change on a dime, pivot, step ball change. We're going to pivot and do whatever has to be done, because that's just the people nobody did it for us. We fought our own battles. We got our own war together. We collected our own troops. We raised our own money. We bought our own supplies, and we fought the fight. And because we realized many, 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 many years ago that if you want something to do something for you, then you better have a network of people who are going to do it. that you know about. Because if you wait around for someone else to help you, you're going to be waiting until doomsday. I wouldn't say that I've stopped participating. It's just been on a weekend where I had something else committed. Or it was really hot that day and I just didn't want to go. Now I have stopped riding in the floats.
When did you stop?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago. I think Rain 25. I think I may have been in that float. And then when Howard Sharon died and Shooters closed, that was my home. He was when Shooters closed. Howard Sharon owned Shooters, and that was the court's home bar since inception. And when he died, the bar closed. And I was the show director of that bar probably for 15 or 20 years. So when he left, the court lost its home. I lost my home bar. And I could have gone to other places to perform, but it just wasn't the same. So that's when I really went full time into being a charity performer and traveler. I've probably been to maybe 5 or 6 cities thus far this year. There's about 5 or 6 more I plan to go to. But again, they're coronations that celebrate the achievements, the fundraising achievements of other cities and other courts around the nation. And that party, that coronation, is a culmination of their fundraising year. And that's why we have coronations. And they are funded and paid for because people come from out of town to participate. So I'm lucky enough and happy to go and celebrate and spotlight the wonderful things that they do. Shooters closed probably 6 or 7 years ago. Howard Sharon,
15, 16, 17?
maybe, yeah. It was before it was before 2016. So it might have been maybe 2013 or 2014. But yeah, because Birdcage hasn't been open that long. And I think it was closed a year before Birdcage reopened. And the Birdcage is a lovely place. I used to hand out champagne every New Year's Eve at Shooters. And the first year that the Birdcage opened, they asked me to hand out champagne at Christmas or at New Year's Eve. So it was kind of fun. But unless I do a special event or I'm asked, I'm not looking to be a performer I'm not looking to do 4 shows a night or 4 numbers a night. I'm just not. I mean, if I can come and sit and have a few cocktails and maybe halfway through the show talk about the local charities or the laws or what the court is and how people can get involved and why they need to get involved, that's my gig. That's what I do. You can log into our website, isqccbe.org, and there's a membership form there you can fill out. Or if you ever went to a court function, there's always someone there who can give you information about joining. It's $15 to be a voting member, and there are probably 150 events throughout the year that you can participate in. We have a membership awards and fun night at the end of every reign where we recognize our court members who have exemplified themselves in some way. We award scholarships to members of the LGBT community and our allies to go to college. It's a party. It's a party with a purpose. And we've been partying and purposing for a long time. And it's I can't say it any other way than being part of something that will be here long after you're gone just sits really good with me. My name may never be spoken again once they put me in that urn. It may never be spoken again, but the work, the history, the tradition, that will remain. and that's what it's all about, making this world a little bit better for those who come after us. I can't say it any better than that. That's what it is. That's what our purpose is, to be on this planet. Pride was an event, and being truly scrumptious is a year-round event. Pride was a place for all of the LGBT community to come together. But so was the court. And the court is 12 months a year. Pride is 1 month a year, or basically 1 day a year. We should be prideful every day. And we should have the outlet to be prideful. And that's what the court has permitted, is to keep that party going, to keep that philosophy of that we are part of this community. We are this community. To keep that on the tips of everyone's tongues, that's our goal, and we do it quite well. You used to say a long time ago that the court is the best kept secret in Cincinnati. We just had a feature article written about us in Cincinnati Magazine in March, talking about what the court was, and one of the lines in there was that we're one of the best kept secrets in this city. We've been here 30 years. We've raised over $1 million. Who are you people? No one knows. But that's because they don't want to know. We are open. You can come to any meeting, any event. We will welcome you with open arms. If you want to put a dress on, we got you. We do an event every year called Miss Magical Makeover, where you come out as a boy or without makeup. And then you have an hour to transform into your alter ego. Whether that is a he, a she, a them, a they, whatever you want to transform into, you have an hour to do so. And if that aesthetic is the best aesthetic, and your performance, which is by audience applause, and you get the most applause, you're going to win. It's about having fun and celebrating diversity all the time, every day. What a boring place this world would be if everybody in the mirror, if everybody that you looked at looked just like the person you see in the mirror every day. That would be boring. And I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine that. As a public school teacher, you're drilled with our strength is in our diversity. But being part of a marginalized community, that really hits home. That really hits home. Because you see it every single day. And you get to pick those people to be your friends and your family. They're chosen. I never ever felt jealous of a kid who was adopted until I had a similar feeling that, hey, they picked you. You got to pick. That's amazing. It's just amazing. Because I have some family that I never would have picked. And I've got some friends who I can't imagine I did not grow up with, or we did not come out of the same person, because we are that close. And the opportunities that this organization and the Imperial Court System in general, and all of its chapters all over this country, I have a huge family. A huge family. If you dropped me off in any city in this country, I could pick up the phone or post on Facebook, hey, I need, and someone would come to my help. That is just staggering in a world that is so selfish, where people are so self-absorbed, that could still happen. That you could reach out and someone would come and help you. It's unheard of in this day and age. But that's because of the family and the network that we've created over this since 1965, since our inception. And it just grows and grows and grows every year. Each monarch, each set of monarchs every year gets to select. There is actually a time frame, I believe it's sometime in the summer, where the elected Imperial Crown Prince and Princess, which is what you're called before you become a monarch, they have a meeting, and any 501c3 organization in the city of Cincinnati who wishes to be a benefactor of their charitable donations, they sit down and have a meeting. They actually meet to talk about what their goal is, why they think it should be that way. This year we're supporting some diverse charities. We're supporting the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence here in Cincinnati. Caracol and PFLAG are typically one of our benefactors. AIDS Volunteers of Northern Kentucky. We work with Women Helping Women. We've worked with the Cat Adoption Team. We have a very diverse clientele when it comes to being recipients of our charitable donations. One of our best fundraisers every year is done around Christmas time. In Rain 5, we elected our first African American permanent title holder. Her name was Rhonda Flaming, and she was Imperial Crown Princess 5. Well, during my reign, she passed. And one of the things that Rhonda did every year is around Christmas time, she would do shows and buy gift cards to give to the residents at Caracol. Because if you know anything about Caracol, all of their funds are provided by federal grants or state grants. And those monies have to be spent on A, B, C, and D. They cannot spend them outside that or they get into trouble. Well, these residents wanted to purchase Christmas gifts for their families, but they had no money to do so. So Rhonda said, we're going to raise you some money so you can have a Christmas too. And so for years, every year in November, she would raise money and then buy everyone living in the Caracol house would get a gift card that they could then spend for Christmas. So when Rhonda passed, a dear friend of hers and my best friend, Ed Blevins, Emperor 21, Edward Cartier St. James, he's the other St. James in our organization. He and she were best friends. So he started this Weekend with the Flame, the year that she passed during my reign. And it's a 3-day event. It's a marathon. We usually do 3 different bars and we do shows and raffles and wreath auctions. And we probably raise $4,000 or $5,000 every year just during that weekend, just to give money to people who can have a Christmas. And then you go to Caracol to give the cards, and for a while we were giving them and having a little sit down, and we would ask them, the residents, what are you gonna buy? You're gonna go buy some bubble bath. What are you gonna buy? What are you gonna buy for yourself? Not one of them purchased anything for themselves. They wanted to use the money to buy something for someone in their family. I remember distinctly this little woman said, I'm going to use my money to put a new window in my son's car so they won't steal his bicycle out of his car. And by the end of all of these testimonials, I'm a puddle and you don't want to show anybody that you're feeling sorry for them, but it wasn't that I was feeling sorry for them. I was just their stories were so genuine that you couldn't help but just feel for them and the pride that they had because they had money to buy something for someone else. That made it, all of it worthwhile. Everything worthwhile. When you see the smile on someone's face because of something you did for them, we could have raised $1 billion and it would not have been worth more than that smile. It was just, and that made it all worth it. When you see the outcome, it makes it all worth it. it makes it all worth it. No, I've never had a relationship in the traditional sense, if you will. I've had a boyfriend or two. Nothing ever lasted very long. Firstly, I'm a very difficult person to live with, only because I like things the way that I like things, and I like living alone. Although I had roommates for most of my life, uh, I just never found the person who wanted me as much as I wanted them. And I'll be honest with you, being a drag queen has a lot to do with being single. Drag has not always been, and still isn't. There are many people in our community, the LGBT community, even the gay community. We are treated as second-class citizens in many places. We are considered less than when you are comparing us to the masculine beach, beach, you know, muscle bound homosexual that you're going to find on some beach in California. When you look at this, there's nothing masculine here. In this whole masculine feminine debate, even in the gay community, makes me laugh. I mean, how can you scream you're masculine and then call me Miss Thing? So that is just goofy. People like what they like. But dating someone who's a drag queen has a different set of problems and issues than just dating someone who's gay. And I've had only a couple of guys that I was interested in who were okay. Because it's either they like me as a boy or they like me like this. But if they like me like this, it's generally because it's a fetish. And as much as I like attention, I don't want to be anyone's fetish. So if I was ever to meet with someone, I let them know, when I go home, all this comes off. This is not, I don't live this way. This is all smoke and mirrors. And some people are okay with that. And the other ones are like, I want you to stay that way. Well, no, because that's not me, and so you're not even being real with me, because this isn't really me. And so my friends have been my solstice. My friends have been the people who've kept me grounded and made me feel loved, more so than any man ever has. And I've had a few who really wanted to be with me. I didn't want to be with them. I had a really good job, and Truly looks like she has money. So my not philosophy, but I've always been encountered with guys want to date me because I have money, or they want to date me because I look this way. But it's mostly for something superficial. And I guess that just takes getting to know someone to change that. But I never had the patience to wait for them to see past what they saw first. I didn't want to give them the opportunity, because if that's what you saw, then that's what you believe. And I'm not buying into that. So I never, and in fact, the guys who like me like this, I want nothing to do with, nothing at all, because I'm a fetish, and I get that. I get it. It's why I get tipped what I get tipped when I'm performing. I get it, but that doesn't mean I want to live with you or be with you so that you can, think I'm something that I'm not. It depends on how you viewed your relationship with your partner. I'm not the marrying kind. I'm just not. Marriage, they want half your money and all your heart. So that's too big a price for me. Um, and it may be that I've just never found that person. And if I walked out of here today and the truck that hit me, the guy wanted to marry me, I'm not going to say no, and I'll never say never. But up until this point, so far, never gave it a thought. I gave it a thought in that we have the same rights. I could. That appealed to me. But given I didn't have anybody I wanted to march down the aisle with, it was like, oh, okay, I could do that. That was a big deal. Would I ever at this stage? No. I'm too old. I'm too set in my ways. If you moved the pillow on the chair and I didn't like it, we're gonna have a problem, And 20 years ago, I could have gave a shit less if there was a chair there. But I have a life. I have a very happy life. I have a very regimented life. I'm a scheduled person. As a teacher, I had a schedule every day to follow. And the first thing I discovered when I retired is lack of a schedule means lack of clarity, and then I get lost being retired. So I have a schedule, whether or not I'm going to work every day, I have a schedule every day, or I would not know what to do with myself, and I would get lost. Having the ability, the right, and then recognizing that then allowed me to come into your hospital room if you were dying, and I had some rights as far as the government is concerned, financially and other things. Like you can will me stuff, or if you're married without a will, you are the next of kin, even if there aren't. But without that document, and the fact that you were gay, you couldn't get married. People's families were coming and taking everything away. I heard a story about an older couple in California. It was before they were allowed to get married. One got dementia and wound up forgetting his partner and everything. Well, his family found out that he had dementia. Came, and the guy said, I don't know him. Well, they were together 40 years, but he doesn't remember him. So the family used that to say the guy didn't know him and he should leave. And it was the only home he'd ever had was with this man. And he was forced to leave his home after like 40 years. And they sold everything, and this man winds up in a nursing home and had, lived another 10 or 15 years, but could have lived in the home that he shared with his partner that they paid for together. And if they were allowed the benefit of marriage, none of that would have been able to occur. So, yeah, we need those rights. If you choose not to have anyone in your life, that's your choice. But if you choose to, they should be able to have as much right as any straight couple. So that part, yes. But personally, I mean, I'd like the party and the dress, getting dressed up and having a blast, and the band and the bar. I would have the honeymoon and the party are all about the marriage I'm interested in. No, I think my generation has lived this whole cycle because we came out and we were wrong. And then years went by and it was okay to be us. And things were given to us. And now they're trying to pack us away again. And I think we are the only generation to have that happen to us. Once women were given the right to vote, they didn't take it away from them. I can't say that about African Americans because Jim Crow laws are still trying to keep them down. But it's difficult when you know what you had and then all of a sudden it's gone and here we are back to square one trying to fight for it again. That's scary. I think it's a huge eye-opener for the young people. I'm excited to see what these young people do with this information and this freedom that they currently have, because it hasn't been taken away yet. And how are they going to fight? How are they going to do it? And we're here. We didn't have, I know 4 gay men in their 70s, total. And my age, they're all over. But the older ones, there's none of them. It's just, we had no mentors. We're the mentors now, and it blows our mind because we don't think we're that old yet. I still look in the mirror and see that 28-year-old. I still do. Now, I have a mayonnaise filter that I look through, but no. But, I don't feel any. I might be over 50, but I still feel in my 20s and 30s. I'm not slowing down. I might walk slower. That's just because it takes me longer. And I want them to pay attention. But I still got 4-inch heels on. I'm not, I see no evidence of me ever stopping. The joke was many years ago, if you die, while I was teaching, we're going to have 2 funerals, because one for the public school folks and then one for everybody else. And I would say, yeah, but the one for everybody else, you're going to need mannequins, because I want all my clothes and jewelry displayed, because they're designs, they're couture. There's none of them in the world. I'm the only one who owns them, because Patrick made them for me, and he'll make something similar, but he'll never make the same thing twice. And I feel, that's something. Somebody made that for me, and they measured it to fit me. That's a lot. That's my contribution. I was lucky enough that the aesthetic that I put forth, people rallied around. They liked what they saw. They thought I was pretty. I was approachable. I was funny. And I've always just endeared myself to people because of that. It was easy for me. I can talk to a rock. I can talk to anybody. I've just always had that as part of my personality. And I think, again, that comes from being a teacher. You got to talk to all those kids, whether you know them or not, like you want to be their friend. And that's not phony for me. That's genuine. I always want to meet new people. I always want to know, what do you think? What do you see? What do you do? Curiosity. Curiosity has always been a friend of mine. And it's always made me personable. I've never met anyone I couldn't talk to, especially in drag, because I don't even know who I am. A lot of people in their 70s won't be interviewed because many of them are still in the closet.
We don't want, exactly.
I've lived this long with nobody knowing. Why would I do it now? Right. What have I got to gain? Or they're living with something. They're living with HIV and they don't want anybody to know. Or I'm done in my life. It's shame. They were so persecuted. Just so persecuted. You could go to jail if you weren't wearing the right kind of clothes. These setups in the Simon Lease era destroyed the gay community in this city. That's why Simon Says Bar was called Simon Says, because you could not be gay in Cincinnati unless Simon says it was okay. That's why that bar was named that. Targeting the parks and targeting the places where gay men meet one another and entrapping them. It still happens. Oh, I went to that Maplethorpe exhibit, and here's the funny thing. I never would have gone to the Maplethorpe exhibit if Simon Lease didn't say I shouldn't. Whatever that man said we couldn't do, we made sure we did. And thank God that we fought the way that we fought. And the Hustler magazine and Larry Flint and being national news. Hustler's still up on 7th Street and over on Elm Street. I know Jimmy Flint. I know the brother. I've met him. He goes to Madonna's. I've met the man. He's going to be part of this fight when the ACLU is all said and done. The same laws that fought with the Flints and Hustler magazine are freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Those are the same laws. We're going to go by that same playbook to defeat these bills. It's a playbook. It's written and it won. So they got their work cut out for them. The saddest part is that they get to use public money to make these fights, and we have to raise money on our own. But luckily, we got some rich folks who want to see us succeed, and most of them live in Hollywood. So they got deep pockets and don't mind giving away money. So we got, and we have local courts, 70 chapters all around the nation who are going to be raising money for this fund so that, again, us old activists, we're going to support you and bail you out while you're out on the front lines protesting and throwing bricks. Throw that brick, honey. Throw it, and we'll bail you out. Hope it don't come to throwing bricks. But again, Stonewall was a riot. It was not a tea dance. Martha P. Washington threw that brick. You know, a woman of color, a transgender woman of color. And our community wants to look down on drag queens. It blows my mind. Wasn't for Marsha, you wouldn't be able to wear that thong in the middle of Main Street. That's why. It wasn't for Marsha. So we as a community need to be more united. I've often said LGBTQIA, that's the only time any of those groups of people are together is the acronym. Otherwise, we are 7 different groups who rarely intermingle with one another. I don't get it. We have different interests, yep, but we have the same fight. And it's about us getting beyond our own personal idiosyncrasies and looking for that common ground and looking for people to fight with about this issue instead of just fighting with for any issue. And we're getting better. And the younger people are much better at welcoming other groups than we ever were. The lesbians hated us and we hated them. We wouldn't go to their bars. They wouldn't come to us. We were scared of them. They were butcher than we were. We were afraid we were going to get beat up because they didn't like us and we didn't like them. And then here we are 20 years later, 30 years later, and they're our biggest supporters. They kept us alive. And these LGBT nurses kept us alive when doctors wouldn't even go to the wings and wouldn't change the linens and wouldn't give you food. If it wasn't for those folks, I can't imagine the horrors, even more horrors that would have been able to play out. But we've come a long, long way. We've come a long way since Harvey Milk was assassinated. We've come a long, long way since Anita Bryant got pied in the face. We've come a long way, a long way. When you get to see Pose, when Pose debuted, people of my age were like, oh my God, they're telling a story we actually could tell. We lived that. That was powerful. That was powerful. You know, and that went mainstream, and then with RuPaul and the whole ballroom scene with that was like the gay 90s all over again. You know, everything was allowed. Everything was being celebrated. And then we had 4 years of hate that was just allowed to grow. And that's where we are now. We need someone on the other side who can preach the politics and the causes without the hate and be inclusive of everyone. That's what needs to happen. I just hope it happens. And I hope that in my lifetime that there is way less hate than than what's coming up. And the best thing is that the young people are united. They're way more united than we ever were. Ever were. We need a seat at the table. We've been very lucky in that many of our, Chris Seelbach, we were very lucky to have representation in government. I believe, like in San Diego and some other California cities, there needs to be always an LGBT task force, not the HRC. The HRC is different. There needs to be people on a board working with local governments who examine every issue that comes across the table related to our community, so that we have a group of LGBTQ, somebody from every sect, and they can vet plans, ideas, legislation, activities, events to make sure that they are truly having the purpose that they are supposed to have, and that they are monitored and supported, so that afterwards there's debriefing and how can we do this better and what worked and what didn't work. We need a bigger network, and we need more seats at the table and more people to step up to do the work. The people right now who are leading these causes are not in their 20s and not in their 30s. Some of us are 40s, 50s, 60s plus. We need some folks to start interning with those big names and activists so that they can take on the reins and not be dropped off without knowing anything about where to go next. That's what I see. Well, Nicole Murray Ramirez, who was our Queen Mother, one of the Americas, she's very political. She was a mayor, a city commissioner in San Diego. And, you know, like Shirley Chisholm even, if there's not a seat for you at the table, then bring a folding chair. But you got to have a seat at the table. And what we see, what Chris Seelbach showed us, is that having a seat at that table made all the difference in the world. We were seen. We were not back in the dark and not talked about. We were visible, and therefore they had to legislate with us, not without us and against us. They had to legislate with us, and that's a difference. When you're at that table, it's kind of hard for them to overlook you. When you're actually saying, "Oh no, hell no, that ain't happening here." Yeah. And that's exactly what he did on many occasions. And he brought a coalition. You can't do anything in this world by yourself. You must have a coalition, a group of people thinking the same way you do, working and doing the work that needs to be done. You know, we're lucky in this city because the drag queen community are really, really united when it comes to this particular issue. And our allies are also there. We have representation from just about everywhere. But we need to be more united. Other than that acronym, we need to work on that. And I think a task force that was formed by the city or recognized by the city would create that exact thing. A specific place for all of these communities to come together to discuss the issues that will inform the city and its leaders about what those next steps should be. That's what needs to happen. And it wouldn't be hard to do. A mayor would just have to form a commission. It's a pen kind of thing. Stroke a pen and it happens. But then the committee has to have meat. Like the community, the police, there's this group of citizens who review complaints by the police. Very much the same, but an LGBT version. And I'm not saying we have to complain about the police, but an advisory board of sorts. I think that's necessary. Absolutely, because it'd be like the Queen meeting with the Prime Minister once a week. This is an issue we're going to talk about every single time we meet, and then it's public. It have notes. It's transparent. They can't wiggle out of it. Well, you disagreed with this because why again? And it keeps everybody honest.